everyone, and welcome back to Career Lab. This is the podcast where we focus on helping individuals young and mid-career and even older career help get traction, understand, pivot, and develop their careers to its greatest potential. And of course, we're very lucky because the star of the show is America's career counselor, Julie LaCroix, and we're always happy to welcome the beautiful, talented, and extraordinarily bright Julie to the microphone. Good morning, Julie.
Joel, good morning. You are equally, if not superior to my skill set. My goodness. Thank you for that introduction. How are you?
Well, it's entirely well-deserved, and I'm actually as well as can be expected in this unusual environment that we're living in.
Yeah, it is unusual. I have a lot of clients who are really starting to get nervous, and I'd love to pick through some of that with Laurie and then just kind of more globally with you afterward.
Yeah, and just for our listeners to know, we are going to do a short special segment episode of Career Lab in which Julie and I are going to talk about what's going on currently, because it's obviously big time in terms of everybody's employment. So be looking out for that. That will be coming your way soon. But this morning, we're going to meet with one of our listeners who's going to be a caller, and we're happy to welcome her onto the show. Her name's Laurie, and we'd like to have her join us now. So Laurie, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
We're happy to have you on Career Lab with America's career counselor, Julie LaCroix. So, well, let's kind of jump into things. And you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on with you right now, and then Julie can kind of jump in and help you begin to pick it apart.
Okay. So what's going on with me right now is I am unemployed and looking for a job. I have been in the same industry for 30 years. And the same basic job for 30 years. And I find myself right a week before COVID, out of a job. And so it's been a bit of a challenge. And I'm looking for help with it.
Well, we're glad to have you because actually, Laurie, your situation represents a very significant part of the population. And as we get into this, I think it'll hopefully be helpful for you and hopefully be helpful for our other listeners. So, Julie, why don't you help Laurie pick this apart?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks for being on the show, Laurie. And I just want to try to decipher for the listeners, was this a COVID-related layoff or was this due to the merger?
It was not COVID related.
Okay. So I just want to be sure that we know what we're dealing with because you had a regular layoff in a pre-COVID environment. So your job search is COVID, but your layoff isn't tied to it. So that's important to know.
Yeah.
Hey, and Laurie, would you mind telling Julie and I what your job has been for 30 years? I think that's important for our listeners and all of us to know right now.
I have worked in the investment performance evaluation field, largely with large pension plans. And it's basically taking all of their vendors and putting together numbers for them so that they know what their overall portfolio has done and their individual managers and asset classes.
Okay, Well, that's very interesting. That's very exciting. So just to clarify for our listeners who may not quite follow, so you actually the company you worked for was a company that aggregated management of investment portfolios?
That was one of their aspects, yes.
Right.
Okay. So let's go directly then. So it sounds to me, and from what you had emailed me, it sounds to me like what you're looking for is kind of a reflection opportunity to look at your skill set and figure out how to maybe broaden them out into other roles. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. This is such a limited, focused job. And so I'd like to be able to expand it out into other areas.
Okay. Did you enjoy it for the most part? You did it for 30 years. Has the sun set on that? You enjoyed it, but you're ready for something else? Or if given the opportunity, if it landed in your lap in your neighborhood, you would still enjoy pursuing work like this?
Both. Both are true. I absolutely have loved my job for the last 30 years. It's kind of a rare thing in this industry to, be in this particular job set for so long. But I truly have absolutely loved every minute of it. On the other hand,
wow, that's great.
It's not the only job. It's not the only thing that I'm interested in. So,
what other things are you interested in?
Well, I'm a bit of numbers person. And so,
You think?
I tend that way. I'm also through COVID in that kind of finding my creative side. So,
Ooh, tell us about that.
Back when I was younger, I refinished furniture for myself. And so I've been kind of getting back into that a little bit.
Have you started to do that again, Laurie? Just on the side?
I have. Yeah, just sort of, something to kind of pass the time a little bit. And I really enjoy it. So it's a fun hobby.
I used to restore furniture in college for my college job, and I have to agree with you. It is a really fun hobby.
It is.
Yeah, it's really nice to restore. I did restoration, so I would restore the finish of a beautiful piece of furniture. We did high-end antiques, and it was great to just break them down and clean them up and put them back together and really restore them to their original luster. And sometimes I feel like I'm doing that with people's career paths too.
With the natural, taking the paint off and doing the natural is what I did back in the college days. Only now I'm like going the other way.
She's putting like psychedelic daisy flowers on her chest of drawers. Yeah. What's real interesting about this, Julie, that you might want to comment on, in fact, I want you to comment on it, and Laurie, for you too, is there's quite a dichotomy between being analyzing the finances of the performance of these pension funds over time, as you both put it, a very numbers-driven profession, and then the kind of, more freeform creativity in restoring old furniture. So what do you make of that, Julie?
Well, it's an interesting combination of left brain, right brain thinking, right? So you have the creativity with the spatial skills and the form perception, which is the coloring and the lines and the shapes and the shades that the eye would pick up, the visual side. So that's where the creativity blends from an aptitudinal perspective on the creative side. And then on the more linear side, she has the pattern recognition, the numerical calculation, the organizational skills, and then the spatial skills to kind of work with three-dimensional ideas in two-dimensional space. And so that's why she's able to take a creative idea in furniture and put it into a physical piece of art. And then she can kind of do the same thing. She probably applies that creativity to how she's thinking about constructing her spreadsheets and her performance reports. So I would say that usually somebody like Laurie, if what you want to do is you want to evaluate what percentage roughly is her creative side making up her full picture versus her linear side. And just from listening to her and what she's loved to do, and that this has been a small theme in her life, I would say that the majority of her skill set would be more on that kind of linear thinking side with a kiss of the creativity, not necessarily enough to where we would really emphasize it in career, at least not from what I'm hearing yet. But I will say this, people who do have both that left brain, right brain thing make fabulous planners. Those are the producers of the world. They produce, they coordinate, they produce, they project plan. They're very, very, very good planners. Planning is different than organizing. So I want to ask you that question. Do you feel that you have really good planning skills, the ability to see the big picture and then put it in a linear sequence and time sequence and delegate and things like that?
Well, looking back on my career, I definitely, more so than I actually realized, had the planning, the big picture idea. I mean, I actually helped launch several other companies, that were working with me at the time. And so, to be able to do that, there were several, probably 3 or 4 companies that we were at their foundational stages and helping launch them. And so, that aspect of it, I definitely was able to do. Now, as far as the planning, the day-to-day, I am really good at laying things out, putting together things for people that I work with so that they have plans, so that they have directions and instructions and things like that. I
That's
actually
exactly
enjoy
what I'm talking
that
about.
aspect of it. Yeah.
Prepping a project planning, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, because Laurie, I can tell already a few things about you. You seem like you're a very seasoned professional. I can tell by the way you answer questions. and I'm sure Julie recognizes this too, that you're measured and you're thoughtful.
Measured.
And
Yes.
you have a lot of experience. And these are really good qualities. When we work with professionals with your level of experience in any area, it's clear that they have a lot going for them in that context. So now that you've had this opportunity, and I guess I shouldn't really use the word opportunity, but enforced opportunity to have this break from a career that you really have enjoyed. And by the way, to enjoy a career for 30 years, and I know Julie would second this,
Wonderful.
says something about you. Yeah, number one, it says that it's a good fit. Because if it's not a good fit, nobody will stay in it for 30 years. And number two, it also says that you're good at it. And so a lot of good things about that. So, but now having had this interruption that you didn't plan on, it gives you a chance to stop and survey the entire landscape of professional endeavors. And now we know that you've also started a couple of companies during the time that you've been in financial analytics for pension funds. So I'm wondering, as you stand back and think about it, and including your sort of avocation of restoring furniture and stuff, where do you think, if you have the choice, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go right back in? Do you want to try to modify, to pivot a little bit? What do you want to do professionally?
I would have the clients go back to being independent again and go directly to the vendors and keep track of their own numbers, and work with them and have them be independent and have oversight of the results, not the inputs. So that would be my ideal, of staying in the industry.
Are there any vendors who do that? Any service providers at all who do that for smaller asset managers?
People who are providing the platforms, they haven't really gotten into that yet. A little bit, but not a whole lot. Platforms would have to open up more to the end users.
Sure. So can I just try to read, unless Jolie, you want to say something, I want to try to redirect this to getting Laurie some traction to move forward and get a plan together. You were laid off due to a merger. You have a wonderful.
I wouldn't necessarily, Julie, I'm sorry, I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Okay.
It's as far as the actual logistics behind why I am not working. That's something I'd like to talk to you privately about rather than on a call like this. So.
Sure. What I would suggest that you do is what I'm telling clients who have a situation like yours, where it's a really mature skill set and it's immediately applicable. I'm telling them to go with the COVID flow and recognize that a lot of work is going to continue to be remote. And for individuals who live in geographic areas where the opportunities are smaller than than the industry center in our country for their industry. In your case, I would think, New York or San Francisco or Chicago or something like that. That go ahead and, one of your strategies, in my opinion, should be to go for the same jobs since you've loved them and since you're highly qualified. Go for the big companies back in New York. Go for the big companies in San Francisco, and see if you can get a position that chances are they will hire you as a remote worker if you're interested in continuing the same path with a big company on a remote basis. If you're okay with that, then I would go with the COVID flow, and that the amount of doors that are going to open for people to take higher level positions in bigger Fortune 500 companies that in their local area they may not have access to is going to be greater now than ever before. So that's my advice. Make that one of your strategies if you want to. Go for the bigger brands, the bigger companies.
I think that's really interesting because I have worked remotely all 30 years. I've never worked in an office for the last 30 years.
Right. So Laurie, let me jump in and follow up on what Julie said. I'm glad you said that, Julie, because I completely agree. People who have remote skill sets like you do, Laurie, are the most employable right now. And that's what Julie was alluding to, and there's no question about that. And so this allows you the opportunity to really kind of get back in the stream without almost missing a beat. But, and here's what's interesting about that. I think for right now, and I agree with Julie, you probably need to just stay in your delineated area, in your sector, because you like it and you have such a broad skill set. But I think you should also broaden your search a little bit, because with your skills, there are probably a number of things you can do digitally, virtually, that are very, very desirable to companies. You're one of those individuals who is extremely fortunate to have these kinds of skills and these kinds of abilities, because those, as Julie just said, Julie and I have just been talking about this and are going to do a show on this. Those are the skills that are most in demand right now, because, of course, they're the easiest for companies to acquire, because there's no physical presence for the employee. And from an HR perspective, just a lot easier.
So you measure for a living, you measure performance, and every company, and you're an expert at it, and every company needs to measure what they're doing, period. And I mean, even me, a sole prop, my marketing person and we measure any of the campaigns that we do to reflect on what worked, what didn't work. And I'm a one-person operation right now, so that's how important measurement is. And the tools are so available that it doesn't even make sense not to measure anymore. So the larger companies absolutely want measurement of all sorts of different areas. So I would suggest, plan A, go with the COVID flow, go for those remote, sell your exact skills that you have for the job, and sell the fact that you're a seasoned remote worker. You understand how to report in as a remote employee, or manage remotely, or any of that. And then on the second strategy, if you wanted to broaden out your skill set, I would make it as, director of program evaluation or data analyst, for special programs, and just see what that catches, because you'll probably get everything from sales programs to strategic partnership programs, distribution programs. You may get in a manufacturing company, a tech company, maybe a huge nonprofit like a Susan G. Komen might want to hire somebody like you. The skills to measure performance of fill in the blank are very universal. It's just a matter of learning whatever technology they're using. I would assume that you have incredible Excel skills, possibly Tableau, Qualtrics. Those are things that stats, maybe those would be the ones that jump out as things I see commonly in measurement roles.
How does that sound, Laurie?
I like it. I think that those are good ideas. Good. And that is exactly what I'm trying to do, is expand out like that.
Let me try to add one more thing. I know we're going to have to end our conversation pretty soon, but I wanted to add one more thing to what Julie has said and all the good input that we've shared this morning. If you can, I think it probably would be good for you to take, like I just said, take your sector, try to re-land in it, but try to change it somewhat. Julie just gave you a number of different, very specific ideas about how you might do that, and I'm sure you know more. And the reason I'm suggesting this is because even the best jobs, after 30 years, need some kind of enhancement or alteration. It's just human nature. We get stagnant with the work we're doing, even if it's the most creative and stimulating work in the world. So if you can take your skills and generally land in the same sector in the sense of using your tools, but change it a little bit in terms of what you're evaluating, I think you'll find a higher level of job satisfaction going forward.
And I've been writing down some descriptors for you, Laurie, that in kind of capture the essence of how you present. You're pleasant, you're professional, you're proper, you're consistent, you're seasoned, you have good judgment, you're highly skilled. You're just a very even-tempered, like Joel said, a very measured. I think you really enjoy working on projects, and I think you probably work very well in a matrixed organization where there are lots of different personalities to get along with, and you're probably really good at squeaking in and out of all the nooks and crannies of an organization. Another thing that comes to mind would be to look at a university. I know that with COVID, universities and their income right now it's very situational, but separate from the COVID impact, I would think that a university would be a place that could really use your type of skills. Measuring their programs, they have funding from all different areas, and it goes out all sorts of doors. It's complicated. It's politically charged on multiple different layers, and I feel like that would be a place where your skill set and temperament could come in and make an immediate difference and be very, very effective. And that might be a nice way to marry a new industry for the long haul. You're a long-term relationship person, obviously. So I think a more traditional environment might be good for you as well. So in that mix of switching it up a little bit, like Joel said, and expanding it, finding a new home, one that isn't going to have you, switching out every couple of years, but definitely freshening it up.
Absolutely. So, Laurie, do you think the input you've gotten from Julie and I has been helpful for you this morning?
Oh, very. As I'm looking forward to re-listening to this and making sure I didn't miss any of those recommendations.
Yeah, I know. We kind of fly through things here on Career Lab. Julie and I have this rapport where we can go back and forth like pretty rapid fire, and I think that would be a good idea. And of course, one of us is going to follow up with you, obviously, in a private context after this morning's call. But it's really, really been delightful having you on the show, and I have a feeling you're going to do very well. But we're very happy that it ended up being you ended up being a caller this morning because your call is so applicable to so many people.
Well, thank you.
It was delightful. That is the word, Joel. That's the word that sums up Laurie.
It really is delightful having you on, Laurie. So one of us will be in touch. All best to you, and stay safe. And we hope to have you back in the future and hear how your transition went, okay?
Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Hey, Julie. Well, that was a very wonderful caller.
And so skilled.
She was a very, very, very highly skilled professional and a great caller to have.
Well, you were right to point out that, she likes a little project. I think she is given a project at work and she just loves to work on the little project, whether it's furniture on the outside or a little performance report on the inside. I think she really embraces with a smile a new puzzle. And I think that you pointed out something that was really important, Joel, and that is to drop the pencil, lift the chin, and even if you do pursue something in your immediate industry, broaden it out a little bit. Try to look around a little bit elsewhere in financial services to try something new, to stimulate and promote some growth. Many of us can get really comfortable in our spot, especially if we're good at it and we enjoy it. And there's no real reason to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And in this case, it is an opportunity for her to evaluate and reevaluate what she could be doing that could could stimulate some more personal growth. Because, in this absence of work, she's re-engaged in her personal growth through hobbies, and I'm sure a number of other things. And I think that having her reseat into a career path that will stretch her a little bit would be really, really good for her in ways that she may not even understand.
Well, you know what I say about that, Julie? Great minds think alike. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And candidly, I didn't want to go on with this with Laurie because we've just met her and we'll probably, one of us or both of us will probably talk with her about it offline. But I feel like when I said to Laurie and our audience about 30 years and change, I really feel that strongly. I mean, I don't know if our listeners know, but, Julie LaCroix, America's Career Counselor, is in the absolute prime of her young life, and I'm a little bit older, and I have a lot of professional colleagues who have done the same thing, especially doctors and lawyers for 30 years, and it's not good. You really need to introduce some change, or you find yourself getting to a place where the routine, and there's sort of a stagnation effect that takes place, and your creativity diminishes, irrespective of what you're doing. So I really wanted to encourage her to try to do that. And what was funny about the call was she already had sort of started that on her own. Like suddenly she was starting to refinish furniture, something she hadn't done in like so many years. But that must mean there's a part of her inside that's going, hey, wake up. Yeah. Let's try something new. Because we all have that part. We all have that part that wants to do that. We just need to allow it to kind of come out. And obviously these aren't the best circumstances, but all credit to her.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Joel, think about her flexibility and her ability to shift with the situation. So many people are afraid to change. And change happened to her, and she just took it on the chin and kept on going. And she picked up a little hobby. I think that's again pointing to her temperament, her ability to really thrive in an ever-changing dynamic. And she just, I think what's probably happened that didn't get addressed in the call is she was probably in a period of an industry over the arc of a 30-year term in a specific company or set of companies who brought her the change. Like the change was part of the environment. And so she didn't have to learn the skills to seek it out. And that will be the skill, the survival skill that Laurie learns from this entire transition, which is actually quite interesting.
It is so interesting. And, I just want to say to all our Career Lab listeners, because one thing that was notable during the call was how calm Laurie was. Okay, so you know what, listeners? We realize that all of us aren't going to be as calm as Laurie. I mean, I wanted to pursue that, but we didn't have time in the call. Most people in Laurie's situation or any situation like this that many of us are going through are not going to be that calm. You're going to be anxious, and it's okay. If you're anxious, if you're upset, if you're freaked out, we understand that because these things are massive. Very few people can react with the kind of stability and confidence that Laurie had. She's an unusual individual that way.
She was in a great way, All the more reason to put her in a politically charged, chaotic environment.
Right. She would certainly be the calming effect in that environment. Okay, well, gosh, we've had fun. We've had fun talking to her, and Career Lab will be coming your way again soon. We're going to have a special episode on COVID and career pivots, and we have a couple of great guests coming up and a lot more callers. So I know you all want to hear from America's Career Counselor, Julie LaCroix, and I can promise you this morning, you will. Okay, Julie, we'll take care.
Joel.
See you soon. And remember to join us for a very special episode of Career Lab coming up, where we're going to talk about the implications for employment, changing jobs, pivoting, and everything that's happening because of the pandemic. So we look forward to seeing you on that episode soon.